We are heading deep into the Appalachian Mountains, one of the most active and haunted regions in the United States. The paranormal in Appalachia is far more real than most people realize. Don't watch this alone at night. Don't forget to subscribe, and let's take a look.
You guys want to hear a ghost story? So if it's dark and you're alone, please don't listen to this story because I'm not going to lie, it's super scary. So have you guys ever heard of a mimicking ghost? Something to do with Appalachia? I have. So the way I've heard of a mimicking ghost would be like if a loved one passed away or something and you smell their perfume or something like that. That's what I've always heard that was. This is a story of a mimicking ghost, but this isn't like that. So this lady, her name's Emily. Her and her husband lived in Florida. They purchased a cabin up here in the Appalachian Mountains, and they came up a few times a year. It was just her and her husband and their two dogs, Remy and Jackson. Remy was a pit bull rescue, very active dog, and then Jax was older and he wasn't super active. But they both loved coming up here to the mountains and enjoying the land and going to play on the mountain and things like that. They had a bunch of land on part of a mountain, and they had a long driveway that went up to the house, and there was no neighbors around real close. So everything had been good. She'd been up here for a few weeks, and she said that it was in April, so it was springtime, everything was blooming, but it had been raining, which she actually liked that because she would listen to the rain hit the tin roof when she would go to sleep at night, and she said that it was very soothing to her. And she would sit out and read and stuff like that. She just really enjoyed the rain on the tin roof. She said that was something that brought her so much peace. So she did say that she had like a couple nights where she had some nightmares. She could hear her husband talking to her and stuff, and she would wake up and, she would be a little scared, but everything was fine. She didn't really think a lot about it. So one morning she wakes up and she decides that her and Remy are going to go out on a trail and go for a hike, a little day hike. And so she left her little dog behind, and her and Remy went out and they enjoyed the day. They had a great hike. It was beautiful, beautiful weather. And so on the way back, she stops at the grocery store. She decides she's going to make a nice dinner for herself. She said it was going to be shrimp Alfredo. She grabbed a big bottle of Chardonnay and she walked out and came home and had planned a relaxing night, just her dogs, and she's going to watch her favorite TV show. So she does all that. She gets up. She decides that it's time to clean the kitchen. So she goes in there, starts cleaning. She's done with everything. She starts washing dishes. And in front of her sink is a window. And she's washing her dishes. And all of a sudden, she hears tap, tap, tap on the window. And her dogs kind of start to react. She is just taken back by it, and it scares her. And so she just kind of took a breather for a minute, calmed her dogs down, and was thinking that, and it could have been anything. The wind could have blew something, and it hit the window. But, she was scared, but she got over it. She starts washing dishes again. She's finishing up and doing a couple more things in the kitchen. And all of a sudden, she hears a bam, like a really hard hit to that window. And she said that she went into like a panic mode. And she just starts like kind of backing up. And she got the courage up to go and turn the light off because it's light in the house. And there's a light above the sink. It's dark outside, so she can't see anything. So she goes over and she turns the light off, and looks, and there is nothing there. So she said that the hairs on the back of her neck are standing up. She freaks out. She kind of just, her dogs are still going crazy. And she says that all of a sudden there is a moment of just pure silence, and that her front door slings open. And it's not windy, it's nothing crazy. And she was like, I have to get out of here. I can't do this. And when she's walking towards the door, she said that she could hear a voice saying, Emily, are you not going to let me in? And it just sent chills down her spine. She said it sounded just like her husband. She grabs her dogs. She goes to the car, gets there, realizes that she doesn't have her purse. So she runs back in, gets her purse. She's in tears, freaking out, gets in her car. She leaves. She didn't really know what to do. She's never had this happen to her before. So she goes to town and finds a place where she can stay, a motel room somewhere. She said that she had to sneak her dogs in, and she got no sleep whatsoever. So she just laid there. The next morning she gets up, she goes to a diner. She sits down at this table, orders her some coffee. The dogs are sitting in the car. She said she could see them from where she was sitting at the booth. And the waitress comes up and, can tell that she's not doing well. And so she asked her if she's okay. And she said that even though she knew that this woman was going to think she was crazy, she decided to tell her what happened. And she tells her that, she could hear tapping on the window. And then when she's running out of her house, that she could hear her late husband ask if he's going to let her in the house. And she, told her, she's like, I've never been this scared. And the waitress told her that that was a mimicking ghost, and that this happens in Appalachia, and that people around here know about this. So Emily's never heard about anything like this, and never believed in any kind of, supernatural stuff. So this was back in the late 90s, early 2000s. So she goes to the library and she looks up a mimicking ghost and is doing some kind of research on that and doing research on her house. So turns out there was a pretty brutal murder there that happened years and years and years before this. And so the house sat vacant for a good while. And so someone bought it, and they had lived there for maybe 2 years, and sold it to her. And she got a steal. Her and her husband got a steal on this place. And she said that she didn't contact the people that had it before her or anything, that she just assumed that they had a bad experience and sold it to her cheap. And she, had read in more to this mimicking ghost thing. And she is convinced that this was somebody that a spirit or something left up there that had something terrible happen to them. And she sold that place, and she never went back. She does not live here anymore, and says that she will never return to the Appalachian Mountains because of this.
The area where I was working did not have a whole lot of apartment complexes, but they did have clusters of condos near each other, and there'd be 4 or 5 people living in a community, and then there'd just be nothing around. So it was almost like little neighborhoods and little clusters of the Appalachian Mountains. And for this particular visit, I was seeing a patient in this area that I have never been before, but there were a whole little community of condos, which was actually very nice. It was a pretty nice area. The mountains were absolutely beautiful. I get to the patient's house, condo. I knock on the door. They come to let me in, and I notice immediately there are flies flying out of the home. 10, maybe 15 flies when they open the door, the screen door. Flies flying out. And of course, my job is to remain professional. I want the patient to feel comfortable. I don't want to make them think that I'm judging them, because I'm not. So I make no facial expression. I'm thank you so much for having me. I'm so-and-so. Where would you like me to be? They lead me into the main room, and there's no furniture. It's just like comforters kind of thrown on the floor. There's garbage on the floor. There's old newspapers on the floor. The floor is a little bit damp. And the patient motions for me to sit down. And again, I am here to meet them wherever they are. If they need me to sit on the floor and do the visit, that's where I'm going to be, and that's fine. So I have a seat on the floor. It is, in fact, damp. And I started asking the patient questions and seemed like a pretty normal person, except they responded to everything in like what's the word for it? Multiples? Like I'd say, what medications are you taking? And they would say, we take. And I'd say, who do you live with? We live alone. Okay, I meet a lot of quirky people. Wasn't particularly strange to me at first. They did get a little bit aggravated when I had said at the beginning, you know, what do you mean we? Like, does someone else live here with you? And they said, we live here. And I was like, okay, thank you for clarifying. I apologize. Now, the fly situation, as I had mentioned, a bunch of flies came out of the home when the screen door was opened, and there were flies flying all around the room. And I don't mean a couple of flies. I mean, there were flies everywhere. You moved your hand like you could touch the flies, and they were flying around my face and my head. Now, mind you, I usually have my hair and makeup done. I have some scented things on me. It's not like I'm surprised that these flies are flying around my head, but I am surprised about the fact that the flies are flying towards my eyes. Like, I mean, the flies are trying to get into my eyeballs. And that was a little alarming to me because I have a laptop in one hand, right? And then I'm trying to keep the flies off of my face with another. I'm trying to remain professional. I'm trying to not be bothered. And then a fly nails me in the eye, okay? And of course, instinct, I close my eye on it. So the fly is stuck up in my eye, under my eyelid, and it hurts. So I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe this. I hear the buzzing. I've got a tissue in my pocket. I take it out. I'm like trying to pull my eye open. Had to go pick up my mini-me. So I've got a fly in my eye. I'm trying to get it out with the tissue. I have no mirror. I'm sitting on the floor, basically on this wet floor, surrounded by garbage. I don't want the patient to feel like I'm judging them or I'm making them uncomfortable. So I remove the fly to the best of my ability. I complete the visit. I go to leave and I cancel my last visit of the day because I'm like, this is disgusting. I feel like I have flies in my hair. I've got a fly stuck in my eyeball. It hurts like heck. I go home, right? I make an appointment for the next morning to go see my eye doctor, which is in town. So I wake up the next morning, I'm getting ready to go to the eye doctor, and I'm walking down to my basement door that goes out into our pasture, and there's just flies covering the screen. And I'm like, what the hell is this? So I open the door and let them out, and I'm like, great, like there must be garbage or something. Looking around, there's no garbage bag left anywhere. I don't live in a filthy house. My house is pretty clean, right? But like, fluke. I live in the country. I get to the eye doctor. The eye doctor says, yeah, you definitely scratched up your eye pretty good. You've got a little ulcer in there. Pulls a wing and like one of the fly's legs out from under my eyelid. Oh, it hurt. But like, I've got fly remains stuck in my eyeballs. Like, I am just like, I cannot believe this. My eye hurts so bad. He gives me antibiotic drops, gives me steroid drops. And then I have the day off, right? I took the day off. So I'm like, you know what sounds good? Let's go to Taco Bell, get a Baja Blast and some tacos. You know, you can't go wrong with that. And I'm in the Taco Bell drive-thru. And I order my Baja Blast. And because I'm not driving, I'm just sitting in the drive-thru. You know, my windows are open. It's a warm day. No air circulation. So I'm like, let me just go ahead, turn on my AC. Hit the AC, and guess what? Flies. 20, 30, maybe 40 flies into my car. It was then I realized, no, that's not a coincidence. What the hell is going on? I get home, I open the door, flies. What the hell? You've got to be kidding me. And then I'm sitting there thinking about the visit and how this person specifically said, we live here. We take these medicines. We need this. We have pain. And I'm like, oh, what did I bring home with me? That realization was very uncomfortable. Okay. Now, if you know me, before I made this video, before you started watching me, you know that I worked at a convent at one point in my life, and I would periodically work PRN at this convent, and I was very close with several of the priests and the nuns at the time. So I decided to seek advice from one of the priests because over the last day or so, there were just flies everywhere. My house was overwhelmed with flies. I had flies in my car. I could not explain it, and I even sprayed. And the priest had basically said, you need to tell it to leave. You have power over these things, the word of God. You need to tell it to leave. I'm like, I'm going to tell it to leave. You come over and tell it to leave. Like, put on your priest outfit. Come on over. I don't want to tell it to leave. Like, this is stressful to me, right? I don't want nothing to do with this. When you mess with the paranormal and you talk about the paranormal messes with you. I'm trying to ignore it. You guys have watched my other videos. Ignoring it, that's what I do. It's too late. I think something followed me home. So I'm home, and I'm home alone. And I walked in, and I said, as for me and my home, we serve the Lord, and you need to leave. I think this is effective after I tell it to go away, till I'm laying in bed that night. I'm sitting up there alone. My husband isn't in bed yet, and I see something laying on the ceiling, like a darker area at the corner of my bedroom. And it looks like a man, and it has one leg, and it's dragging itself across my ceiling, dragging its torso. And it turns its head around, and I can see its black hair fall over its face. And I'm sitting there absolutely paralyzed. Like, what in God's name is this? It dragged itself across the ceiling, dragged its torso across my ceiling with its 1.5 leg, dragged itself around the corner, looked at me the whole time, dragged itself into a large closet in the room, and I never saw it again. And I woke up the next morning, all the flies were dead. And I swept them up, and I threw them outside, and I blessed my house. And I thought to myself, was it his leg that was stuck in my eyeball? Where is your other leg? And who is we? Sometimes I think we need to remember that when you acknowledge the paranormal acknowledges us. The best route, in my opinion, is always to ignore it if you can. But then you get to a point where you can't ignore it. And at that point, I guess you pray to whatever God you believe in.
Okay, I'm actually freaking out right now. I just received the most terrifying audio. I'm going to play it for you guys because I want to know what you all think this could be. It's from a guy that used to work as a tour guide in an underground cave system in East Tennessee. Take a listen to this audio and then I'll explain his story. Y'all, what was that? Apparently the cave that he was working at the time, it had an underground lake, and he would give boat rides on the lake down there under this cave. This is after all the tours had ended for the day, and he was still down in the cave just wrapping up for the night when he started to hear this strange growling noise coming from inside the cave. He said he has never heard anything like this before. He explains that he just felt an overwhelming sense of like heaviness and almost like an evil presence in the cave at the time. Him and his coworker are looking around trying to figure out what this is. There is lights obviously down there in the cave for people to see, but as they are looking around, the lights started to flicker and then they just shut off completely. His coworker is the one that actually pulled out his phone and recorded the audio of whatever this creature is. He says that sometimes animals and things can get down in the cave, obviously, but nothing that has ever made this sort of noise. And then also, why are the lights flickering and why did the lights go out? But guys, it gets even scarier. He said that they have these like headlights that they use. So he pulled that out, him and his coworker put them on, was shining around trying to see where the noise was coming from after the lights had went off. And they saw this creature. He said he saw it very briefly because whatever it was going super fast, crawling up the side of the cave wall and then disappeared into a hole in the ceiling of the cave. He describes it as being a very light gray color with super long limbs and being very, very thin. Almost like reptilian in nature is what he said. He said his experience terrified him so bad that he quit the next day. You know, people go missing in Appalachia all the time. People are never recovered. You never find their bodies. Like, you hear some crazy stuff going on in these mountains. And sometimes I just wonder, like, what's hiding in these caves.
I'm going to share with you guys tonight another creepy story that happened to me working in law enforcement. This would have been probably my first year of working in law enforcement. And this has been over 20 years ago. First several years I worked night shift. I actually still prefer night shift, but in my role I'm strictly day shift. But anyway, One thing I would often do when I worked night shift, where I was at, there was a college baseball field way up on top of a mountain, very close to where I was at. On nights that it was slow, I wasn't very busy, or after I got my normal stuff over with, I would go up there a lot of times just to see it for a little while and kill time. So this one particular night, I was done with all my normal stuff, and it was slow, probably somewhere between 12:30 and 1 a.m. I drive up way up on this mountain, no one else within a mile at least of where I'm at. I go up there, it's beautiful. You can see it was a very clear, beautiful night. I would usually get out of my cruiser, roll the windows down, turn the radio up, and I used to smoke, so I would usually just stand out and smoke. And keep in mind, I had done this literally dozens and dozens of times. No incident. I had heard people, other officers and different people say they'd experienced a few strange things in the area, but I never had, at least not yet. So I've been up there at this point for probably 15, 20 minutes, just listening to music, smoking, and it was very peaceful. Out of nowhere, just like the hair stood up on the back of my neck. Like I just got that feeling like I was being watched, and I got very uncomfortable very quickly. And out of nowhere, probably somewhere between 60 to 80 yards in front of me where the tree line was that started going up the mountain, I heard the scariest sound I've probably heard in my life. To this day, I don't know what it was. The best way I can describe it, it sounded like a vehicle tearing down the mountain through the trees, the brush, the bushes, except there was nothing there. My first thought was maybe a tree was falling, but no tree fell. And I'm standing there just kind of frozen, and I grab my mag light and shine it. There's absolutely nothing. But I can hear this thing ripping and tearing very loudly down the mountain in my direction. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not too proud to say it. I didn't stick around much longer. I got back in the cruiser and I left. It was actually quite some time before I went back up there and done that, but eventually I did, and without incident. One of my best friends in the world, he lived from that area probably a quarter mile, if that. And back in the 1950s and 60s, there was a story that someone allegedly unalived a Bigfoot. Now, I don't know if this was a Bigfoot, a ghost, a dog man, or just something else. I know no trees fell. I did go back later, like after it got daylight. No trees had fell. There wasn't a mudslide or a rock slide. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't normal.
Hello?
If you made it this far, thank you for exploring the paranormal side of Appalachia with me. These mountains hold centuries of secrets, and we're only scratching the surface. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss another deep dive into the strange, the unexpected, and the terrifying. And as always, stay safe, stay aware, and question everything.